For Global Business Update, we go to Michael Wilson in London. Great to have you, Michael Wilson. Pleasure to have you this morning.
Good morning. Yes. First of all, as far as the Far East markets are concerned, Hong Kong tech stocks leading it downward. China's cut its rates to continue to help its own economy. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong about 1% lower. Japan is closed for a holiday. As far as so in other words, it's just mainland China really dipping very, very marginally indeed. But clearly, the big interest of the week is going to be what the Americans decide to do, what the central bank in the United States, the Fed, decides to do with interest rates when they meet this week. India has a rice export ban. It started quite a while ago on September the 9th, but people are actually seeing that they're doing it to try to control domestic prices. They've slapped a 20% export tax on several varieties of rice. Philippines and Indonesia will be the most vulnerable towards that. India accounts for 40% of global rice shipments, but the others like Thailand, Vietnam, Pakistan and the United States may well prosper as a result of that. Sri Lanka, we've been looking at that over the past few weeks. It's going to present its debt restructuring plans to its creditors and also tie it in with the IMF bailout. All the details of that are going to be on Friday this week. So things are gradually moving forward. Years of economic mismanagement combined with the COVID-19 pandemic have left Sri Lanka in its worst economic crisis since independence from the UK in 1948, and it has in fact defaulted on its sovereign debt. As far as the United States is concerned, futures inching very low. I suspect that probably won't be an enormous amount of action today, given the fact that the Fed's meeting is going to be middle of the week, and we'll hear what they're going to do then. We got a little slippage on Friday as a result of the hotter than expected inflation numbers, which came out on Thursday. But also, I think much more important than that, although that is quite important. But I think as far as corporate things are concerned, FedEx issued a warning talking about a significantly worsening global economy. However, there are some bright spots. Here's what Wall Street experts are actually recommending. Apple is one of them. EQT, another energy company, is another one. Devon Energy, oil and natural gas. Broadcom, semiconductor component manufacturer, and also Nvidia as well. Now we talked about how that had been hit by various government guidelines on where it's actually going at the moment. But people are looking at that and actually thinking to themselves, you know what's not such a bad bet after all. And it's actually quite interesting. I'm going to skip over to the United Kingdom with 7 out of the best performing stocks on the London Junior AIM market are fossil fuel companies as well. So clearly people are looking at those. Now, as you've been saying all morning, today is the day when the Queen Elizabeth II is laid to rest, and much of Britain is actually paused, probably. The pound has hit a 37-year low against the dollar. There's a lot of question marks about the economic credibility. Bank of England of the UK, the Bank of England meets on Thursday. We're expected to increase interest rates. And then the first, what's being touted as a tax-cutting budget from Kwasi Kwarteng happens on Friday. He's got a lot of work to do. I don't need to complete repeating the business about rising prices and the cost of living pressures and all the rest of it. So he's got a great deal to do. Oil gains were capped last week by fears that aggressive rate rises by the Fed might slow down not just the world economy, but also the United States economy as well. And just before we leave oil, and just before I get back to you, it's worth saying that central banks are gradually, all of them, getting to what they think, or what the analysts think, of peak rates much more quickly than expected. So things are tightening very, very quickly in the world as a whole. That's the global view this morning.
All right, real quickly, Michael, let's go straight to it. The Economist projects a figure of all this energy freezing cost will cost the UK, a lot of cost in there for me. It's going to cost the UK 120 billion pounds sterling. That's plus the 300 billion that was taken out in COVID debt. So in the space of 5 years, close to $500 billion added to the national debt. Is Liz Truss thinking at all? When there's an easy way to get that money? When the windfall bonuses, the energy windfall bonus is about 170 billion, sitting there, but you've given them to the top business executives. Couldn't you just have used that to fill up the hole that is happening? What's going on?
Indeed, you're right. That could happen. The government is not supporting it right now, and actually, energy companies themselves are now saying that they would support a windfall tax. Well, they do because it's a one-off. You see, this is the problem with it. I mean, it's all right doing it, but it just is a one-off. Whereas what this new government is trying to do, as I understand it, is create an environment of growth and hope that, again, borrowing into the future against that expected and projected growth may well do the economy slightly better, and this is what Kwasi Kwarteng, what we're hoping for in the budget. I suspect it may the energy side of things may cost even more than 120 billion. I'm hearing more like 150, and it could be 200. So we are getting into at stratospheric figures for debt at the moment. But it has to be done. What we don't have at the moment is how businesses themselves are actually going to benefit from any kind of help as far as energy prices are concerned. And I think that's some kind of detail which you need to recover. As I said to you on Friday, I very much hope that civil servants are spending a lot of their time right now working out the finer points of this detail, because whilst it's relatively easy to give money to households, it's very, very, very difficult, very, very different and difficult to give it to businesses who may well be right in the middle of contracts as we speak.
Okay, while we're all waiting to hear from Bank of England and also from Kwasi Kwarteng this week, well, UK retail sales dropped by larger than expected margins. The pound sterling is at the lowest point against the dollar in 37 years. Will it be correct to say that the UK is already in recession, all things considered? And then Pakistan, the finance minister of Pakistan has been saying that Pakistan would absolutely not default in its balance of payments commitments, the next one due in December. And yet, the climate calamity that has befallen Pakistan makes things so difficult. Over 1,500 persons died in the floods. The debt burden of Pakistan is about 74% of GDP. And then, of course, the agri sector, which accounts for about a quarter of that economy, is in a very difficult situation. Is the finance minister of Pakistan just being positive, just to build confidence, or Pakistan is another country that we have to look at very closely, despite the promised support now from the IMF?
Well, I think if the IMF go into Pakistan, they unfortunately will be looking with a very cold eye. I mean, they will appreciate that there have been terrible disasters there, particularly the flooding, but they will be asking in the same way that they have been doing from Sri Lanka for some sort of indication as how the government is going to pull itself out of this. In other words, it needs to meet the IMF at least halfway. That's as far as I can tell you about Pakistan at the moment. I mean, we feel very, very sorry for the way in which the agriculture has been hit and people losing their homes and their livelihoods and so on. But I feel as though the IMF will take a very, very cold view over it.
Okay, you didn't respond to the point about the UK being already in recession, as some people are arguing.
Yeah, it may technically it may well be in recession. As I keep saying about this, I don't think it doesn't really matter now. I think that people realise that that's just a label, and it's not a very precise position to be in. I know that economists say it's two successive quarters of declining growth and so on, and that's supposed to be a recession. I mean, again, it may well be, and it may be happening in the United States, and it may certainly be happening in the rest of Europe. I think that people are far more concerned about the rising costs and rising energy costs, and they don't care whether it's labelled a recession or not. I think the fact that people are going to be struggling over the winter, it's people a lot more.
Ah, so sad, Michael. It looks as though that 2022 is just like 1992 for the UK in terms of the economy. It's fast becoming another Annus Horribilis. Thank you so much for your time, Michael. Really appreciate it. So now for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Sadiri is here to join us. It's great to have you, Rotus.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor.
Morning,
Good morning
yeah.
to all our viewers. The Financial Markets Dealers Association, they had a quarterly meeting. Ari Eisen, who is the IMF representative to Nigeria, was stating that, the same story that the IMF has been telling us. You have to raise revenues, you can't raise debt any further, and that, look, the markets right now, we're expecting another interest rate hike from the Federal Reserve. That's going to make borrowing more expensive, so you must raise revenue. It's the same thing. Oh, here's a quote. Let's look at a quote from Eisen while he was there, saying that we're facing high inflation all over the world. Interest rates in the major economies have risen significantly. International environment has become more difficult, risky, volatile, so accessing euro bonds for financing of debt is going to be challenging. It will require much higher interest rates and may not even be feasible. The National Assembly, on their parts, they might amend the Finance Act. They're saying they might have to push revenue targets on some MDAs. They might have to increase them. Here's a quote from Sani Musa, who is the chair of the Senate Services Committee. He said the budgets of this country have been in deficit, and the only thing we can do is to amend so many things in the Finance Act so that we'll be able to generate more revenues from other sources rather than depending on oil alone, and by extension, reduce the size of proposed budget deficit. So, Chair Committee on Senate Services. Look, in terms of revenue, we can talk. I actually want to pivot to entertainment here, and this revenue talk for Nigeria. The Woman King, the Viola Davis film, topped the U.S. box office over the weekend, brought in about $19 million. This is a $50 million movie before marketing and promotion. So you add another 20, 30 million for marketing and promotion. This is probably an $80, $90 million movie, and probably has to make almost 100 million to be profitable. Based in the 17th, 18th century Dahomey Kingdom, about an elite squad of soldiers, all female soldiers called the Agoji, which I think the Black Panther Dora Milaje was based on. Where in the elite squad, they basically had a rivalry with the Oyo kingdom or the Oyo tribe, and that's this around slavery, the African stories. This is the #1 movie. It was shot in South Africa, in KwaZulu-Natal and in Cape Town, right? And there's a lot of pressure for this movie to make money. There's a tweet here from Viola Davis. If we take a look at that tweet, where she said that, like I said, that was at the Toronto Film Festival. That's what TIF is. If you don't plop down money on opening weekend, you're not going to see black females leading a movie again. Continue to support the Woman King. So there's a lot of pressure on them to be able to, for this movie to be profitable. But it's not just about black females. There's also the Nollywood angle to this. Jimmy Odukoya, who is a Nollywood actor, is in this movie as well. He plays a character called Oba, who is the leader of the Oyo tribe. And he's the main villain in this film. So this is a Nollywood actor. It's a big role for him. If the film is successful, you look at the commercial appeal of African culture in these movies. If it does well, you are going to possibly, hopefully, see more Nollywood acts in these big budget films. But beyond that, so when we tie what Sani Musa in the National Assembly is saying about revenues, how does South Africa continue to attract some of the biggest Hollywood films to the area? Many things. The Rand US dollar exchange rate. The Rand is pretty weak against the dollar. So if you are a Hollywood studio that is going to drop $50 million or more on a production budget for a film, you are better off filming it in South Africa, where the exchange rate differential profits you, as opposed to shooting that movie in California or New York or elsewhere. There's also the fact that the government has had a consistent policy on giving discounts, on rebates and so on. I think is a cap of 50 million rand to studios that utilize South African talent in shooting those films. So the 15-25% you get discounts. So those rebates plus the exchange rate differential, very profitable for them to shoot there. There's also the movie production expertise. I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we're talking about Nigerian filmmakers who go to South Africa to film either music videos or film movies. The rand is stronger than the naira. So if you're a Nigerian going to South Africa to go shoot a movie, you're spending more money. But the infrastructure is there, the expertise is there. There's also cinematic landscape and the security of tourists, another very important thing. No area boys will come and attack you or ask you for money when you're shooting a movie there. They take tourism dollars very seriously. Michael Wilson was just in South Africa. He was vacationing there with his wife.
His wife is South African.
So there you go. So I'm saying, so in addition to that, there's also the fact that there's more tourism tourism inflows going into that nation. Tom Cruise is there. He was spotted. This was back in March, or was it April? Look at this headline. Tom Cruise arrival in KwaZulu-Natal gives tourism a major boost. So he's filming Mission Impossible 8 as we speak in South Africa. Look, they have their power shortages by power rationing with the issues with Eskom. They've got the floodings that happened, the riots, all these are slow GDP growth, issues of corruption with government, high unemployment. But Hollywood is still continuing to do business in South Africa because, as the saying goes, if you build it, they will come. Now, what's it now? As far as Nollywood is concerned, here's a quote from this is the FedHasa, the Federal Hospitality Association of South Africa, referring to Cruise's appearance in South Africa to shoot the movie. That this is an amazing opportunity, not just for the leisure tourism industry, but holistically for the province and businesses in KwaZulu-Natal. Accommodation establishments are filling up as more international celebrities explore the beautiful province, and we look forward to hosting more international celebrities. So, what are we here doing to attract this capital to come here to shoot these films?
I want to jump, but I was so excited when I saw the topic, when you sent and said, we're coming in today. We're not marketing.
Yeah.
And when you market, you put incentive in place. South Africa has been marketing across all the top international media, CNN and the likes.
They came here.
And they came here.
I had this tourism
Rise
board.
TV,
Yes, they came
media,
here to advertise.
all the international media to advertise. They have a tourism board that works. They are preaching the message. They are giving subversions. That's why you see Nigerians are going there to film and all of that. They're not marketing. I'm sad that this thing was shot in South Africa because it's our own story. That home as a point was under the Oyo Empire. It's our own story.
Yeah.
And we've always told the story of the Amazons and all of that. The lady that came in, Maria Bello, one of the producers of the movie, came in to Dahomey, went back to look for the money, and finally got to the studio that came on it. I think Sony came on it because nobody was ready to give her the money.
Yeah.
And the film, as Eclipse, it was targeted to do 10 million the first week of opening. It's done 19 million now.
Yeah.
And it also behoves on us to support our movies. I mean, I saw it as it came out on Friday at the cinema. Good performance there by our own Jimmy Odukoya. Go and support him. But we're not marketing. We're not putting incentive in place. So what's the solution? And because prior to now, we used to have all of that. If you remember Mr. Johnson, the last movie Herbert Ogune acted in, Pierce Brosnan was here. It was shot mostly around here.
Yeah.
All right. We've had a lot of international films too being shot here. So let me tell you what we should do now. Our very good friend and brother, Kunle Afolayan, has built
Talented
a film
filmmaker.
village somewhere in Oyo State.
Yeah.
That's where he shot his new movie that is coming up soon. And Nicola Pope, lovely movie when it comes out. Go support the movie and watch. I think what government should do is see how they can tap into Kunle Afolayan's film village and make it bigger. Incentivize Hollywood cast and crew. Go on a road show and advertise it. Put the incentive in place. Also, what we should also do is open up an institute where you can train proper cinematographers. The reason why people go to South Africa is they've got the best cinematographers. Even most Nigerian ads, we have to import South Africans to come and do it.
Yeah.
We are good in the talent, the acting and all of that. What we are not good at is, one, publishing. Two, what we are not good at is the technicalities of movies. There used to be a guy back in the days that tried doing it from Hollywood. He got experience in one, I think Afolabi or something was his name. They came with Professor Wole Soyinka. They shot the first movie, Kongi's Harvest.
Yeah.
One of the best picture quality ever. That man was frustrated out of business around that Oyo area, built a film village, got a Swedish crew in there, but he died miserably. We don't need to allow talents like that die. This was in the 80s, 70s.
Yeah.
Shot a couple of other films, good quality till date.
Well,
Support people like that.
Yeah.
The person you're referring to is Mr. Francis Oladile of Kapene Films.
Very good.
Who
Dr.
shot
Bati.
Kongi's Harvest.
Kongi's Harvest.
Okay,
Very good.
I'll be brief
Yeah.
because I used to teach culturology and cultural administration. What are the issues that we have? In Nigeria, we pay lip service to culture.
Yeah.
We have all these ministries of culture and tourism. Every government says, we will promote tourism potentials, but we don't get it right.
Right.
why don't we get it right? As of today, Nigeria does not have, a very definite cultural policy, which is part of the problem, which is part of the reason we get it wrong. For decades, people in the field of culture and the arts have been asking for an endowment for the arts. The closest we went to it was what was done under the Jonathan administration and sustained by the Buhari administration through the Bank of Industry, giving grants to persons in the creative industry, as it is otherwise called. But that has not gone far enough, because in the absence of a cultural policy, when you do comparative cultural policies, Europe, Africa, and all of that, you see that Nigeria is very far behind. And which is why one of the problems in this sector is that when we appoint commissioners or ministers of culture, we come from this understanding that it's just entertainment.
Right.
We do not realize that, look, culture is big investment.
Right. Exactly.
We do not realize that culture is big diplomacy. As Professor Ade Adefuye of blessed memory argues in his book on culture and foreign relations. Now, we've seen how that can work with many, persons in the creative industry in Nigeria being superstars across Africa and in other parts of the world. But do we have the framework in place? No. The third point is that who wants to come and shoot films in Nigeria when there is a big problem of insecurity?
Thank you.
Of kidnapping.
Thank you.
And the narrative out there is that Nigeria is not safe. Even oil company workers are leaving the environment. So you have to get certain things right. Now, the funniest part of it is that even for us here in Nigeria, opportunities, domestic opportunities, are taken to South Africa by Nigerians because of that disconnect between the cultural establishment and government and policy. Wasn't it the case at a time that Big Brother Niger was taken to South Africa? Until people kicked and said, how can you say it's BB Niger and you are recording it in South Africa?
Right.
At some point, not too long ago, government even had to say that, look, you can't go and be shooting Nigerian adverts in South Africa. But people go to South Africa because the environment is more enabling. And these are the things, that we need to look at. We need to upgrade our understanding of culture. And a country like South Africa has shown that there is that linkage between national pride, culture, tourism, and the economy. Now, the second point about this woman king, I think one remarkable thing about it is also the theme. Usually when you see Hollywood films talking about African women, it's always the African woman as a victim. But thematically, this woman king, in which Viola Davis stars, is different because it plays to the strength of womanhood. It changes the narrative in a very significant manner. The third issue about this also is a collaboration between Hollywood, and Africa and Hollywood. Because you see that increasingly we find, Americans and foreign investors taking an interest in cultural resources of Africa. We've discussed Disney Plus in that regard. We've discussed Netflix in that regard. And now this is, Hollywood, making use of talents in Africa. And I think, yes, it's a great opportunity for the gentleman on the screen, Jimmy Odukoya, who even had an opportunity to make an input into the scripting, because the Oyo King that was featured there was given a foreign name, Abua or something, and he said, no, that cannot be the right name. I'm a Yoruba person. I can't bear a foreign name in a Yoruba-centered film. And he said, Obade will be a more appropriate. So at the individual level, you find that many Nigerians, will have these opportunities. But it's a sector that we're not treating well enough. We have a film institute in Jos, but it's poorly funded. So much of what you get is from, the creativity of individuals. But that's not how it is done in other countries, be it Egypt or the United States or even Germany.
Right. Lots to be done. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you, Rotus.